you know, so we're feeling much better about that. Hey, Mr. Dale Lamb, Dr. Dale Lamb, how are you, sir?
Fine. I hope I'm not late.
You're not. So we are in a hybrid setting today. So we have 3 of our APs in the boardroom with us here.
Oh.
And then Mr. Klein is joining us from his office. And then one of our APs, Mr. Hewitt, was not able to join us because he's fulfilling the duty of an AP and covering for his principal who's out of the building at a conference today. So Mr. Hewitt was not able to join us. So we went ahead and logged on and checked our technology.
Okay.
So that you could see us. So I hope those of us, the 4 of us that are in the boardroom, that you see and hear appropriately.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
So
yeah, I can see the boardroom and I can see Aaron. You have a blank screen.
Well, that's my laptop from where I was logged in.
Right.
I have learned the further I am away from the camera, the better.
Yeah, I need a lot of filters.
So I'm sitting at the boardroom table.
Right, I see that. I thought you might have been recording. I do that when some of the meetings that I go to, I bring a laptop and we have the big camera, but I've set mine up and I have found out if you don't have your video on, you can't record the session. I found that out the hard way. And so just as a reminder, if you want to record, you'll have to turn your camera on. But if you
I think you just taught us all something, Dr. Lamb.
Yeah. And so I learned that the hard way. And
so we have been, I don't know how you've been working with your folks who are in the field, but you know, this is already a wide open time of the year. And then we have a number of additional legislative requirements that have been thrust on us district-wide and at the school level. We are in the middle of 2 big application periods for federal funding. So we have, our APs have spent more time together this week and the week since we've been back from spring break because it's been a very compressed time. We've been working on our summer planning. We've been working on our year-end planning, trying to close gaps and address learning loss and that kind of stuff. So we were just saying that we feel like we've all got on our fireman's hat and we're drinking from the fire hose.
Yes.
So a lot of the time that we would usually spend in kind of debriefing things that come out in leadership, because we spent so much time together this week, we're ahead of the game. So whenever you're ready to take off, sir, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, I'll do that. I had my law and finance class last night, and the adjuncts that work with us, I hire people in the field, and so my 2 adjuncts that are working with me is content coaches this semester. One's a high school principal down in Pitt County. She's at Aiden Grifton, Sheena Caton, and then the other, Anna Maraglia, is middle school in Charlotte. And so we did facilities last night, and they were talking about all the things they went through and what's going on with all the legislation and all those things. And so I understand that it's a busy time. I understand things are changing, but I guess my argument is there's some tried and true things in our business that don't ever change. And that is that our job as school administrators is about delivery. It's about delivery of instruction. That's our primary goal. I mean, that if we boil down what the school business is, it's about delivering instruction. And so to kick off today, and I'm going to share my screen, what we want to do today is talk primarily about developing a school-wide professional development plan. you know, I am not a big um, Collins fan, you know, good to great, you know, getting the, you know, getting the people on the bus in the right seat. Well, what happens if you don't have the right people? Well, the notion is that it's up to you to make them the right people. Is to develop the people that you get. Your job when you hire somebody or when you become an administrator and take people over, your job is to make them is to facilitate them to become great. That's your job. Um, and so there is a systematic way to go about doing that. And it involves teacher empowerment, which is a very important piece. And so when we look at professional development plans, there's basically two types. As all the world, I tell people, is content and process. Everything in curriculum, the whole world is just content and process. And so the two types of professional development are the content professional development. That's when your district or your school has um, curriculum and programs that support school improvement plan activity. This is district initiatives, school-wide initiatives that are based off your academics. And then you have your process professional development. And that's best teaching practices, empowering teachers in their own classroom. You folks are close enough to Kannapolis to understand Big E and Little E, NASCAR reference, the Earnhardt Senior and Junior. Well, Big E is empowerment as a school-wide leader. Little E is empowerment as a classroom leader. And that's where we have to start, is empowering all of our teachers to be leaders in their own classroom. And to do that, we need to assess them using the district's walkthrough instrument or Marzano's high yield strategies, which most of those walkthrough instruments are based off of. And so when we look at the content side, when we look at those programs, we basically disaggregate our test scores. We look at gaps in our test scores, and we look for programs, treatments, or fixes. That, you know, where we put a district-wide initiative in for reading or for math or you know, problem-based learning for algebra in high school, whatever we put in, those programs are generally pretty rigid and set. There's little autonomy. They have to be delivered with fidelity so we can look at them across the district or across the school for comparative basis. We have those kinds of things, the who, what, where, when. You know, our disaggregation tells us what all those things are. It's generally adopted at the school or the district level, and they address specific gaps in our standardized test scores. So those are the content professional development. That's generally developed above the school level, or if it's developed at the school level, it's developed through the school improvement plan and the school improvement team. But there's little autonomy for principals there, or assistant principals. There's little chance to have an impact on delivery in your school. So let's talk about the other type, process delivery. You know, I used to tell teachers all the time, I'm not going to get in an argument about what to teach. My job is about how to teach, is to making sure that you can deliver content. And that's where you can have your impact. That's where you can grow your faculty. That's where you have the opportunity to do great things and to build the kind of faculty that you're proud to lead and to work with and to serve. That's what we're talking about here. This is where you truly have your impact as a school administrator. I mean, if you're doing Read to Achieve or whatever, you don't have a lot of impact in that. That's a canned program. But where you can have your impact is helping teachers become empowered in their own classroom. And so you would use your walkthrough instrument if you have one for your district, and if you do, if you don't, you would use Marzano. If you're doing walkthroughs off the Thomasville City Schools walkthrough instrument, you need to develop look-fors. If you don't already have those, you need to develop look-fors. When you go into a classroom, what am I looking for that shows me that high yield strategies are being used. And so if I switch over to the Marzano document, that's, here are the high yield strategies that we're looking for in those classrooms. We're looking for identifying similarities and difference. This is again, old is new again. This is the good stuff. Reinforcing effort, providing recognition, homework and practice, those things. But Marzano has gone a step further and told you this is what you would see in the classroom if these things are happening. If this kind of high yield strategies are going on in your classrooms, this is what you will see, and has even sketched it out. And I sent this in the link to join me today. These are the visual things that you would see in these classrooms as well. So if you're using your own document to do walkthroughs, again, I would encourage you to develop a sheet that looks like this. Look for when you go in that classroom. What will it look like if these kinds of best practices that empower teachers in their own classroom, if these things are happening, this is what it ought to look like. And so here again are the high yield strategies that you're looking for when you go in those classrooms. Now you take that walkthrough data and develop a professional development plan for instructional delivery. We're talking about delivery in your school. And where we get to the big E empowerment is we identify those teachers in our building who are doing the things that need to be done in terms of high yield strategies. We look at their EVOS scores and we look at what's going on in their classroom. And we have them, this is a no-cost professional development. We don't have to buy a program. We take those teachers who are the best and we have them teach the others. And that gives the teachers who do the teaching, it gives them the opportunity to make that first step on the rung. Teaching other teachers is the first step to becoming a school-wide empowered teacher. And it helps those who get taught to become empowered in their own classroom. And this is the way that you create a culture of teaching and learning in your building, is that what we prize in our building is great teaching, not rolling the ball out or how many games we win or this little student activity or that one, all the shine kind of activities. What we prize in this building is good teaching. We create a culture of teaching and learning. That's what we're looking to do here. So the teachers who do the teaching to teach the others, they get the big E empowerment. The teachers that get taught, hopefully they get the little E empowerment, which is their first step to becoming an empowered teacher in your building. This is a teacher empowerment model. Now, when we do the staff development, and I call my model MTSS for teachers, everybody gets it, multi-tiered system of support. We start out in August at those work days, and we do a whole group staff development for best teaching practices based on either the instrument or Marzano, which they're basically one and the same. And the range of time is from 30 minutes to remind everybody to all day. And that's based on what you have found doing your walkthroughs. What % of our teachers are doing best practices in their classroom that we know yield, that are high yield strategies? What percentage? If 95% are doing high yield strategies in their classroom, then my whole group instruction won't last but 30 minutes. If only 5%, then it's going to be all day. We, again, we make professional development fit our modality. We don't have a one size fits all plan here, but all teaching staff, and even if 95% are doing the things that they need to do, we need to remind everybody every year that this is the corner of the realm in our building, that what matters in this building is great teaching. Above all else, great teaching is what matters in our building. And then from August to January, the first semester, we work in our PLCs, in our professional learning communities. We identify which of these strategies are the hardest or the lowest. The usage rate is the lowest. And we share different strategies in our PLCs as to how we do these things in our classrooms. And we need at least 30 minutes a week working on individual strategies that aren't being used enough or utilized or underutilized or not utilized at all. And again, that's from our walkthrough data. We do that we do that PLC work. That's that small group work. And also during that time, we do one-on-one coaching of our new people. And we bring these people in. Now, here's where, we talked about master scheduling last time. Here's the trick on that. You're gonna have to unbalance your master schedule. Let me tell you that to start with. And when I say unbalance your master schedule, what I mean is this. Aaron and I are both math teachers over in the math department. And he's the veteran math teacher, and he's going to be my mentor, and I'm the new math teacher. We can't both have planning at the same time. Even though the math department, to have a balanced schedule, we everybody in math, has planning at the same time, so we can do departmental plan. Nope. We have to unbalance our master schedule so that Aaron and I do not have planning at the same time. Very critical part of this, how this works. I have to be able to go and watch him teach, and he has to be able to come and watch me teach. That's the heart of one-on-one mentoring. Just getting together in the faculty lounge and talking about the ball game last night or talking about those kinds of things won't help me be a better math teacher. The key to that is we have to have time where my planning is such that I can watch him teach and he can watch me teach. And that's the heart of that one-on-one coaching. That's difficult, especially in high school. I'll just tell you right now, it's difficult. It's not as difficult in the lower grades. It's just not traditional. It's just, we've always done it this way. What's the theory of insanity? Do the same thing over and over again, expect a different result. That's actually Arger's double loop theory, which is akin to Lamb's triple loop theory that we used to do in Charlotte Mecklenburg. When we, the theory of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again. The theory of stupidity is to hire more people, do the same thing over and over again. And so we've always done planning a certain way. And the key is we have to get out of that rut of we've always done it this way. And so we've got to move on from that. If we want true one-on-one coaching, we've got to move on from that. And then about mid-semester, after the first 9 weeks, we add that one-on-one coaching to our folks who are not performing well, not just our beginners, but our low performers. We have to do that. About midway of that first semester, we can't wait till midway of the spring semester and say, Dale didn't do too good this year. And he's been here 3 or 4 years. He's got 1 year of experience 4 times. He's never progressed past the neophyte or the beginner stage. We need to get him some help. No, we need to do that in the middle of the first semester. When we see that teachers aren't adopting and their EVOS scores have not been good, their growth scores with their kids, which means they're not using high yield strategies. We need to get them support in the middle of the first semester of the year, not the last semester. We need to get them that one-on-one coaching. And again, you may have to unbalance your schedule in some way in order to do that. But again, we need for mentors and mentees to be able to be in one another's classrooms when they're teaching. That is the key to one-on-one mentoring. And then as we move through the plan here, and I apologize for the size of the font. As we move through the second, we do a follow-up on whole group at mid-year before we start the second semester. But we just do a little quick and dirty, reminding everybody this is the corner of the realm. It's delivery, instructional delivery. Got to do it, folks. And then we work on a second of our lowest strategies in our PLCs. So non-linguistic representation, I'll give you the answer to the question, to the test. Non-linguistic representation will be the first one you work on during the year because nobody knows what that is or how to do it. And then the second semester, you pick a different one of those 9 strategies and work on it. And you have teachers share in their PLCs. You have them share how they do it in their classroom. And so you pick a different one, and it's probably going to be similarities and differences. You're going to pick that one for your second semester. and you're going to work on that in your PLCs. Your one-on-one coaching is going to continue with your beginning teachers and with your low performing teachers. And so what happens now is, you know, after you've coached these people, you know, not the beginners, we're talking about our low performers now. Low performing teachers that didn't improve after 9 weeks of one-on-one peer coaching, they'll continue to receive that, but they're now going to go on an action plan. They're now going to go on an action plan mid-year.
Dr. Lamb, Ms. Sylvie has a question.
Yes.
For the peer coaching, do you do any training or working with those teachers on how to coach?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When do you do it?
What that looks like is basically it's a quick course in Marzano's high yield strategies, and that's the first piece. Generally, what I have done, just me personally, generally what I have done is I have, and I did it kind of the same model as how you do department chairs, but I did it as mentors. Basically, where I met with them once a month during the year to see how their mentees were going, but to also kind of keep them trained one step ahead. I did that individually as the principal, but you can do it. The principal doesn't have to be the one that does it. Basically, what you do is you start with them in the early work days of August, before the formal work days. You have them come in and you do their initial training session. You tell them who they're going to have. You go over the high yield strategies. It's about a 2 hour. It's about a 2 hour PD. You have them come in one morning, then you maybe have lunch for them, and you quickly go through. This is the corner of the realm. These are the things that we're looking through in our walkthroughs. These are the high yield strategies. This is who you're going to have. And we have a plan, and you're going to cover this with your mentee, that these are the kinds of things we go through. That basically what they do is share this document and work with their mentees from day one on this document. Let me go to it. I got those things around. This document. This is your PD document for your mentors. This is it. We're working off this document for our mentors so that they know all these things, how it looks in the classroom. They know what to look for when they're working with these, and they know, and this is what they explain. This part is what they explain and how they work with their mentees. This is it. This is it. So that's a great question. I should pause more for questions. I know. I get excited.
That's all right. We'll interrupt you.
Yeah, just interrupt me. But yes, that's a great question. You've got to train, but that document is the basis of the entire program. That's the basis of what we want to convey to our beginning teachers and our low performing teachers, that if you will, and I know it's an oversimplification, I get it, but we have to start somewhere. But if you can master these techniques and these things, that will put you on the road to becoming empowered in your classroom. And so generally, back in the day, I would generally bring, I would do it in the same day. I would bring like the mentors in the morning, do lunch and invite the department chairs to come and have lunch. And then we would do the department chair, all those formal things in the afternoon. Be one day in early August. And the payback for them was I provided them lunch. That I did that. I was famous, you can tell from the size of me, I was famous for cooking and eating. And so a lot of times I'd actually prepare the lunch, or sometimes I'd just call Price's Chicken Coop and have them bring it in. Everybody loves fried chicken. And so, it just takes a day or a half a day Because you're preaching to the choir. You're talking about, you've identified people in your building who know this stuff, who do this stuff on a daily basis. This document just formalizes that and gives them a roadmap of what to do with their mentees. This is what, they say, well, what am I going to do with this person? Well, here it is. It's not 100 pages long. It's not hard to understand. It's what you do every day. We work off that basis of that document. That's the heart of what we're doing when we go in and do our walkthroughs and we're training our mentors. This is what we want the mentees, the beginners and the low. This is what we want you to learn. This one document has everything that you need to know to get you launched on that path. Now, obviously, it's an oversimplification. There's more things down the road, but we're talking about the basics of instructional delivery. We assume past the problem too many times. We assume that everybody knows this stuff. And generally what I found and what I have found and what I find working with in training folks is, I'm amazed. We put our administrative candidates, we put them through a whole semester of this basically, where they have to do the disaggregation of the test scores, and then they do the walkthroughs. They do that. Our add-ons do it in one semester. Our regular masters do it in 2, and they have to develop a professional development plan, just like we're talking about. We have our folks, and I'm amazed at how many of the folks that we got in administrative training, some of them already APs, that don't know this process. But yes, we have 2 evidences, and we spend 2 semesters with our masters and 1 semester with our add-on, exploring this whole thing from start to beginning. I mean, from beginning to end, excuse me. But one of the things that I made the mistake myself is thinking people already know this stuff. They don't. And so you've got to make sure this is the initial steps. This is the 101. This is for beginners, and obviously, there's a reason why career teachers or veteran teachers are not being successful. They don't know the basics of instructional delivery. We assume that because they had student teaching that they did, but as we all know, there's so many alternative paths to the classroom now. With what is it called, resident teachers, and what do we call the ones that we used to call lateral entry? We have a lot of alternative paths to the classroom now that folks have not had the basic training in instructional delivery through student teaching. All right, and I'll pause. Any more questions at this point? Am I being as clear as mud? That'd be about my usual.
No, this is good.
All right, so then we get to that 4th quarter. We work specifically with our beginners. We continue to work on our high yield strategies on one-on-one coaching. We also begin to introduce some classroom management at that point. You say, well, Dale, if they don't know any classroom management, they've probably been run out of the classroom by the 4th quarter. That's true. It's possible. But one of the things that we begin to hopefully understand the relationship between classroom management and instructional delivery, that once we've learned these new delivery methods, that we can use them for classroom management. So we introduced that concept in the 4th quarter for the beginners, that there is a way through your instructional modality, how you deliver your instruction. There's a way to help you with your classroom management. We all know that, but I'm not sure that beginning teachers know that. And I'll get on this rant for a second. My wife was a supervising teacher for student teachers. She worked and we know who we always pick to be supervising teachers. They're supposed to be the great teachers. And one of the things that I noticed over the years and watching her is that a student teacher would get no sense of classroom management student teaching with her, because her classroom management, there was no classroom management. She was known as the queen of mean. As you can tell, I am an oversized individual, but my wife is small and rather petite, but she's got a lot of mean going on. And so she never raised her voice, but she could cut she could cut glass with a glance. And so she was one of those teachers whose classroom management was never an issue. And also, she taught the last 15 years of her career in a public separate charter school there in Charlotte Mecklenburg, but it was on the campus of Davidson College. It was an IB school. They had the 240 smartest, best, and brightest kids anywhere. Just had to make sure that the sun didn't hit their glasses or burn paper. I mean, these kids were incredibly smart. And if you student taught in a situation where you got the best and the brightest, they never misbehave. You've got a teacher whose classroom management is just impeccable. As a student teacher, you don't learn any classroom management. You don't even know classroom management's a thing in a situation like that. And even in schools that aren't like that, just regular traditional, we put student teachers with teachers who have impeccable classroom management. That's just understood. They don't get that piece. And they certainly don't get the link between instructional delivery and classroom management. They don't understand that that's a thing. They don't know that. They don't get that in their college or their student teaching experience. And that's one of the things that's real critical to kind of bring it home for those beginning teachers at the end of that last quarter of their first years, begin to get them to understand the relationship between instruction and classroom management. If they get that, I'm telling you, it makes all the difference in the world. That kind of completes their education, their first year in teaching. You want to take them through this process of best practices, how to deliver instruction, what we're doing, why we're doing it, what it looks like. And then in the end, the capstone to that entire process for a beginning teacher is now to understand the correlation between instructional delivery and classroom management. That's kind of the final exam. And then again, at this time during the fourth quarter, for Dr. Kennedy and for the folks in the central office, this is the time that you have to make a decision. At this time, you've been doing one-on-one coaching on an action plan for 2 semesters. At the middle of the spring semester, remember, we started their action plan and coaching. We started coaching them. Middle of the first semester, we action planned them. They weren't showing any improvement after 1 semester. We action planned them. They've continued coaching. They've been coached for half a year now. They've been on an action plan for the last 90 days. We can now make a decision on these folks. This notion that we had to get rid of tenure to get rid of bad teachers, we don't have to. Now, I'm going to tell you one of the things that I tell my doctoral students. I don't tell my masters and add-ons, but I tell my doctoral students this. Until you can let a good person go just because they can't teach, until you can do that, you can't leave the school. You just can't. Well, this is a good person. They've got a family, but they can't teach. Our core competency is instructional delivery. That's our core competency. That's what we do. That's the only reason we exist. That's what we do. And so you've got to be able, these are mostly central office people and some principals, but you've got to be able as a principal and the central office, you have to be able to let good people go just because they can't teach, if that's what we hired them to do. And so this plan fits with your legal. You're hitting all of you've given this person a year, you gave them a semester look, to do better than they did last year on their own. They didn't. You gave them 6 months, 2 semesters, two quarters, a whole semester from mid-year to mid-year, mid-first semester to mid-second. You gave them one-on-one coaching. You had them on an action plan. They didn't show any improvement. You need to help them find a new career. That's pretty hard. I understand it is. But if they don't respond to this, I don't know what else we can do. We can't keep good people just because they're good people. If you can't teach, we don't hire people to be doctors who can't doctor, or lawyers that can't lawyer, that didn't go to law, that can't do it. We can't keep people employed. We're not an employment agency. It's hard. I know. I get it. I understand. It's tough. But in the end, you are hired to make sure that instruction is delivered in your building. What to teach is way above your pay grade. Your job is how to teach. And that's where you as a school administrator have the most impact, is developing a professional development plan for process for delivery, not the initiatives from the district. They'll tell you what they want done with that. This is your opportunity to create a culture of teaching and learning in your building, and to have a positive impact on the lives of children in your building. Don't know much, but this is all. I only know 2 things about the school business after 40-something years. If teachers and kids are in the room together and they're engaged, you got a shot. If teachers or kids, and we've learned through COVID, aren't in the room, or if they are and they aren't engaged, like virtually, you got no shot. That's all I know. So I can hush now. Kind of turned somber there at the end, didn't it? It kind of veered off and hit the guardrail.
I think every point that you made is absolutely valid and is on point, honestly. We're just constantly thinking about the dying field of education, and back to the point that you made, that we have to, how do we empower, or build capacity in those who don't see it for themselves. And sometimes it's the little nuances that are big, like Thomasville City Schools is a small entity next to larger school districts like Guilford County or like a Charlotte Met that can also incentivize
Right.
certain things, so that candidacy pool is also then larger. So when you're thinking about, the student, some people are additions by subtractions.
Yes.
Right? And so if we operate with that mindset, who are we replacing them with?
Well, I think you're exactly right. See, to me, the Collins model is an oversimplification of the Get Sales Good with Social Systems model. But I go back to, I'd rather have a sub than a bad teacher. And I can take a beginner, I can take somebody who's of reasonable intelligence, and I can build them into a reasonable teacher. I have that much ego. I have a whole lot more confidence than ability, I'm quite sure. But I'd rather have somebody that I can train than somebody who's bad. I do sessions. I did one with one of my students who had an interview coming up for an AP job yesterday, and I told her inexperience is not a bad thing. I'd rather have somebody with no experience than bad experience. I don't have to break bad habits. This is a way that we can build our faculties. We're not always going to get the best ones. I worked in kind of places where I was out flagging down cars. You want to come teach school for me? That's the kind of places I worked. I didn't work at the places like my wife. My wife, she worked every one of our stops. She worked at the best school. She was a great teacher, had a degree in curriculum instruction, and wouldn't leave the classroom. So all these advanced degrees and certifications, she always taught at the places where, I always used to tease her the most important, person in the organization at her school was the custodian. As long as you got the front door open, the scores were going to walk right in every day. I never worked at any of those places.
Me either, brother, me either.
I always worked at the places where I was just hoping to get anybody. And I realized real quickly that I had to build me some teachers. And that's where we are everywhere. See, here's the thing. If you just old enough and mean enough and just last long enough, it all comes back around. Everybody now in the business is experiencing what I experienced 30 years ago when I was working at those places that we called at-risk schools, and I couldn't find people. I couldn't find anybody, much less good people. And so I had to build people. Now, everybody's having to build people now. We pay so little, and so few people are going into the business. Everybody's having to build their own now. I had to do this out of necessity because, and I was an anomaly back then, but now everybody's having to do this. You got to build your capacity. This is the way you build capacity through empowerment in your building. If you don't do this, you're not going to have 5 great teachers apply for the next job opening that you have. I hate to tell you that, but it's just the truth. You know that. This is about building capacity. This is about having an impact in your building through professional development plans that you build at the school level for instructional delivery, which is our core competence. That's what we do in the end.
Well, it swings the door back the other way, and I want to say in front of our APs, and to compare and contrast to some of my experiences and maybe yours at Charlotte Neck too, we have the support here at the district level to do something about substandard teachers. And we have an HR department that is supportive to say, if you have done your documentation, we will help you find other employment opportunities for these folks.
Yes.
If you've done the part that you do.
Yeah.
I came from a district, and the same thing. I was principal at one of the state's lowest performing middle schools. And we were in a situation sometimes of having to get who was there. And my predecessor had hired 2 teachers that I was just like, oh my goodness. And I inherited a mess. They're both first-year teachers. Well, one was first year, one was a TA to teacher. Well, they were both TAs to teachers now that I think about it. But they're both first-year teachers. They had come in mid-year the previous year. I've got them for their first full year. It says in the dadgum legislation for a low-performing school that if they don't show proficient in that first observation, we can let them go.
Yeah.
And my district was, well, have you done this? Well, have you done that? Well, here's what I need you to do is to document everything, do a 5th observation on the teacher, do a 6th observation on the teacher if you need to. We've got to show that we did everything possible. And I'm like, these teachers are bad for kids. And I don't mind telling the story. One of the teachers was a cross-cat, self-contained teacher, not providing supervision for a student in the middle school, and we end up with kids doing things in the bathroom they ought not do with each other. And I'm like, I've got a list this long on this. Why am I having to do? Why am I sitting here at the end of the year? We need the non-renew folks. And our HR department in this county that shall be unnamed, Johnston, was all about trying to get teachers to resign rather than non-renew. And I'm like, these are first-year teachers, year-to-year contracts. I mean, you can say to them, here's where we are, you got a choice, resign or non-renew. But I mean, to get to that point, what I had to do as a principal was insane. So I'm saying to these folks, you have a greater level of support in Thomasville City Schools from the HR department. Dr. Dalton ain't afraid to toss a non-renew on somebody.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And
But I want, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I that's the key. You know, you've got to be willing to make the call. But you
And the
got
thing about it
to do
is-
the work, but you got to make the call.
Well, and the thing about that too is if you have people who are incorrigible and they see that a principal or an assistant principal is going to have a solid plan, going to have an accountability piece, and that there is a way on the other side that they may not, that this may not work out for them, they may find that gear they need to get into to stay employed.
Yeah.
If I know I can kick this can down the road for a while, they're not going to do that. The other thing I wanted to circle back to was, as you were talking about some things, particularly in your development plan, I heard Sylvian Rhodes over here going, that's a paradigm shift. That's a different way of looking at things. That's backwards from the way that we think about doing things. And you're absolutely right. You know, the worst thing that we can always do is what we've always done. But I really wanted to kind of circle back to that part about, you know, sometimes taking that next step requires you to go a place you didn't think about going, or to do something that had not occurred to you to do it that way before, or to build it backwards. Same thing like curriculum design. You know, when Wiggins and McTighe became all the thing about building the curriculum backwards, starting, you know, I mean, that's Covey, begin with the end in mind.
Starting with the end in mind. Yeah, exactly.
You know, and again, when I came through administration in the early 2000s and Wiggins and McTighe were the flavor of the month, it was a mind-blowing thing for people. And now we accept that.
Yeah.
Curriculum design. So, you know, don't be afraid to take a look at some of these things and switch them and reverse them the way that we've done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, if you keep on doing it, you're gonna keep on getting what you got. But I applaud you and your superintendent. One of the hardest things I ever watched, because it was personal to me, I was in the central office, and one of the fellows that was a friend of mine, he was a middle school principal when I was a high school principal. He was a little behind me, but we'd become friends, and he'd become a high school principal, and we got a new superintendent. And so the big principals meeting in Charlotte, you wear your best suit, comb your hair, shine your shoes, because there's TV cameras there, you know. And so you go to the principals meeting, and my friend got pulled aside. You know, somebody whispered in his ear, "Go ahead and sit in the front row." At this new superintendent, his first, you know, principals meeting, and the new superintendent got up and he began his speech, and all the TV cameras are there, you know, at the principals meeting at the general session, and my friend sitting in the front row, he thinks he's going to be singled out for an award, and superintendent calls on him, has him stand up and introduces him, and has him remain standing, and says, you know, he's principal of one of the largest high schools in the district. It's low performing. He has 0 teachers on an action plan, none. Now, it let all of his blood out, and of course, they moved him immediately to another role in the district. But that superintendent, the message that he sent is we can't continue to do business like we've been doing. Judge Manning has basically, you know, fired the last superintendent here. He said what's going on, especially in our high schools, is genocide. That's what Judge Manning said. It's genocide. And so that superintendent had to go. The new superintendent came in and said, we can't have a high school with 3,000 students with 56 mobile units, low performing, and not one teacher out of 300, not one teacher is on an action plan, not one. It's a paradigm shift. We have to shift from being an employment agency to an instructional delivery agency. That the reason why we exist is instructional delivery, not to provide people with jobs. That is a paradigm shift. And my friend, I hated to see that happen to him. I really did. But it had to happen. As Dr. Kennedy said, the superintendent in the HR department in the central office, they have to say, we can't abide by poor teaching, since that's our core competency. That's what we do, you know.
And I think the rub comes in when you have someone who's been teaching for 25 or more years, who's not ever been on an action plan and been told, you know, the kids love that teacher, but yet we know that the best practices aren't consistent. You see them here and there scattered.
Would that by chance be an English teacher in your building?
Yes, that's what I'm referring to. We're meeting with her at 2 o'clock.
I was just laughing, Miss Sylvia. I was in her classroom yesterday and mouth agog for a 28-year teacher.
Yeah. Well, see, she's got 1 year of experience 28 times. She never progressed to that next level. That a true mentoring program for those BTs, that true mentoring program and that final exam of learning how instructional delivery and classroom management marry at the end of that first year, and that light bulb comes on and they can start that upward angle to get to that, during that neophyte stage, first 4 or 5 years, you're just hoping they can find the door sober and clean clothes. At the beginning of that first year, you want them to go through that mentoring process, and then they start to grow from there, that upward, and then they get to that 5 to 25 year, what we refer to in the business as wagon pullers, where they're out there, they're pulling the wagon. They don't have to be stars, bright and shining stars. Those are the people who put in a solid effort and do well and produce, good scores in terms of EVOS. That kids are growing and learning in their classrooms. And then we have that natural decline, unfortunately, after 25 years. We have to move to a different professional development model for them. But the problem is when they never got past that initial neophyte stage or that BT stage, that they've been the same beginning teacher for the last 28 years. That's when you got problems. And so this plan helps you get away from that going forward, but also addresses that in the current as well. What we do when I leave and head across the state on 40 and I get to Raleigh and I turn south going toward Wilmington, I usually get off and go to Goldsboro. Sometimes I get off there, but right after you go around the curve, the next exit that goes after Raleigh is Garner, and there's a place there, and it's called, the exit is Jones Sausage Road, and there's a big sausage plant over there. You know what they do at Jones Sausage? They make sausage. You know what we do in school? We teach kids. It's kind of in the name. And we have to understand what our core competency is. It's on the title. They know at Jones Sausage. There's a lot of different roles in that plant, but in the end, they understand our job is to make sausage. That's what we do. It's in the title. In the school business, there's a lot of different roles, but in the end, our job is to deliver instruction to kids in a way that they get it and understand it and can grow and learn. That's who we are. It's what we do. And if you have people at 28 years or 8 years or 8 months that don't do that, it's your job as an administrator to fix that problem. That is a problem. It's your job to fix it. And it's here that your administration supports that.
It's because of that 25-year mark and the decline, the will is not there. The person thinks that they still have the will, and they had the skill, and the skill is still there, but they just don't have the will to do it consistently.
That is correct. There's a natural decline, and I graph this out for my doctorals. I graph it out based on data points. We do a little linear. But you see that beginning teacher basically is flat for that year. And you've got to get an uptick starting in that second year. And then that uptick lasts for 3 or 4 or 5 years. And then it kind of levels off. That 5 year to 25 year, it kind of levels off. But unfortunately, the data shows us at 25 years, people lose their wind. They just get tired. And it has to do, and I believe it has to do with, and this is anecdotal. I've read a lot and seen a lot of research as well. A lot of it has to do with elder care. People at that age have to start dealing with elderly parents. And I can tell you that takes about all of your will. But even if you don't have to deal with elderly parents, at that point in your life, you've been there, done that, you think you know it all, and you're right. You believe that you're doing the same as you always did, but you really aren't. We see a natural decline at 25. Generally, that means people's parents are, hitting the 70-year-old mark. They're hitting getting close to 50. Their parents are 70 to 80.
I think you're gonna laugh, baby.
Pardon?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I'm a little over 50, so he's over here going,
Yeah, and so, but one of the things that I saw a lot of is teachers in that category dealing with health care for themselves, health care issues, elderly parents, finding them, elder care, homes, nursing. I'm telling you, it's financially draining, but it's also it's emotionally draining. And it's just emotional when your parents start getting old and slip. It's just hard on you, as we all know. Those of us who, I wish I had my parents back. I'm old enough, I don't have any left. But going through all those years of elder care, and between me and my wife, it was exactly a 10-year process. And that's the way it is for most people. It's about 10 years. And unfortunately, it starts about your 25th year in teaching. They kind of coincide, they correlate. And there's no, you've got to work, you've got to work specifically an action plan, or not use action plan. You've got to work a plan with those people to try to keep them going. Now, one of the things that if folks are old enough or have read anything, remember back to the 1980s, North Carolina tried to accommodate that with status 3 teachers and career development pilot program. Were those people only taught half a day to try to keep their energy level up and let them coach and mentor the other half a day. Of course, it didn't last because of the money. But that's one of those things that you can try to do with folks like that is find a way to accommodate them somehow. But in the end, we can't. If we hire you to teach, you got to teach.
Right.
And so there are some things that you can do with those, some support groups and some other things that you can do with folks like that. We can't really take them out of the classroom half the time, like was the original plan to combat that natural 25-year fatigue that sets in. That's been a thing for a long time. We know that, but you've got to do that. But this plan can help you with that. But you're right. You can't. Folks think they're still doing well, but they just they aren't. And I'll use, again, it's not about me, but I'll use a personal example. My wife taught 1 year after her mother started having health issues. She taught 1 year and she said, I don't have the time or the inclination. She retired. She said, I don't have it. I don't have it. I want to spend more time, taking care of mom, and I just don't have the time to put into these kids that need to. And again, she was in an IB school, very demanding. She said, I just don't have it. And she had the good sense to walk away. But fortunately for her, she had her time in. But the problem is that 28-year teacher who needs to walk away, but that doesn't have her time in. You don't get lucky enough for them all to have their time in.
Well, and it's funny you mentioned that. That's why I'm here. That's why I left Johnston County and came here, because my wife's parents live here. and they are approaching 80. My parents have passed. My wife, who is a 24-year teacher, will be 50 next year. I mean, everything you're saying, I'm sitting here going, Dale's describing my life, and he doesn't know. Describing my life and my wife. And one thing that she has done to kind of keep herself fresh is she has moved. When she started burning out after years of being a high school teacher, she dropped down to middle school. She said, I have to do something new, or else I'm going to lose this. And so, and the other thing that happens, and I think you're right about dealing with those teachers, you know, my wife has said many times, what else am I going to do? I said, for the next 6 years, nothing.
You're too far in, you're too far invested.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what happens to a lot of our teachers is they reach that point where it starts to, they get tired of pulling the wagon. And it's so funny, as you were saying this is my wife. She is the Blue EVOS teacher teaching at one of the better middle schools in Johnston County, who hasn't been a department chair. You know, she leads the homecoming committees and does those kinds of things, serves on the Sunshine Committee. She's not a building leader, but she's going to put out those Blue EVOS scores every year. The kids love her. She teaches on the top team with the Math 1 kids and English 1 kids, and they all adore her. And she's just you can hang your hat on her, but what happens when she gets to 25? And so that's one of the things that she's actually looking forward to. They got a new principal. She hates the principal. She's like, I'm ready to do something new. And that's why,
We need a Math 1 at the high school.
I wish she could do math. She's a science teacher. She's on the team with the Math 1s. So, and it might be a little nepotism if she works in the district that I'm in charge of.
Yeah, that might not go well.
Really fly. We've talked about that.
But these are, and I'm not very articulate. Y'all already figured that out. These are the kind of collaborations that school leaders have to have, like y'all are having today, sit around and talk about. This is real life. This is where you would maybe move a teacher from one school to the next. Or one of the things that I tried when I was in an elementary principal, and yes, I was. It's been a long time. But I came through the old system where you started out, even though I was a high school person, you started out in elementary, middle, junior high, and senior high. You know, I had to work 14 years to get back there. But anyway, one of the things that I did when I had teachers, especially the older ones, burn out, was change grade levels. Now, they weren't always happy about that. But, you know, that's one of those things. But you can sit down and talk with them, you know. They may need to move schools, may need to move grade levels, may need to change, but see, your building is made up of people like Dr. Kendi, Krista's wife, the wagon pullers. That's who move our organization. Those Blue EVOS teachers. They don't, not the stars. Pardon, Aaron?
Oh, I had to make a comment on that because at elementary level, when we moved, we did move a lot of teachers over my years here, and 99% of them said it was the best thing they ever did, but 100% of them hated us while we did.
Oh yeah, they'll be mad at you forever. They'll want to know where you buried.
Oh yeah.
So they can visit your grave. They won't bring flowers. They'll always hate you for doing that. But they have to admit in the same breath that it was the right thing to do. I had a friend in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, who just moved a teacher's room. He moved her room. You know, he didn't change what she taught, and she tried to just file agreements over but he needed to get her away from some people. You know how that happens? Teachers migrate together, and they, you know. I had to be careful not to say something inappropriate here, but they kind of get together in a little clique. And a lot of veteran teachers will get together in a clique, and it's not, it becomes a kind of a toxic environment. And so what he did was simply move her to a different part of the building. He didn't change her students, didn't change what she taught, but I don't know that I ever saw a person madder than she was. But again, people don't like to change. We understand that. But again, it's not about the comfort of the employee. We got to make sure that we're following our data and that our walkthrough data, our EVOS data, and that we're giving kids the best opportunity that we can to learn. And these are the kinds of things that in these collaborative sessions like y'all are having now, these are the kinds of things that you discuss. I've got this going on in the building. These are the kinds of things that are issues for us that we need to address. And you collaborate and talk with folks about how did you do it? How, that's a good idea. That's a bad idea. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard. Or that's a good idea. I get about half and half the things, but again, Chris is absolutely right. You got to think differently. I remember when we started reverse engineering the curriculum, people thought that was just, the craziest thing they'd ever seen. And now it's just accepted practice. It's the heart of, you start with disaggregating your data. That's reverse engineering. You look at your data tells you where your gaps are in learning, tells you where your instructional gaps are. We just simply reverse engineer it. That's now, people would say if you didn't do that, that's normal now. That's accepted practice. But he's exactly right. 21 years ago when that first started, that was just earth shattering. We started with learning outcomes rather than the end.
Well, and
I was looking at a document this morning. I was working with one of my colleagues this morning, and we were looking at ALAs from Gardner-Webb. And they've been around since time memoriam. I don't know how old they are. They appear to me to be probably when the college changed from a 2-year college to a 4-year college back in, that's been 50 years ago? Time flies when you're having fun. The ALA, the form that we fill out on our programs each year, still starts out with student learning outcomes. Now we get eventually to our data that informs the changes that we make in our program and our curricular presentation. But because this form is so old, it's actually backwards from what's accepted practice now. And so it was odd 40 years ago when that form was devised. It was that was the standard. Now when we pulled it up and we were looking at those things this morning, we were like, yeah, this how odd that looks to us now. So again, yeah, I know unbalancing your schedule won't be popular, but your job's not to be popular. You got to get these people in one another's rooms. It won't happen otherwise. But again, the heart of what we're doing is that Marzano, or if you have your own walkthroughs, if you have your own look fors, for your district, you can substitute it. But in the end, that's the heart of what we're trying to do is delivery. That's where you have your biggest impact as a school administrator.
So when I started teaching, I started at Charlotte Mecklenburg, and my first year I said to these guys, I had a mentor. She came to my classroom once a week, a different period, and observed me. And then we sat down together and she filled out her form. And then the next week I would go and see one of her classes because I didn't know what I was doing. It was fantastic. She and I still communicate to this day, and that's
Right.
more than 25 years ago. But that was so valuable. But here's the thing. She got paid good money for doing that too.
Yep.
Not say I don't know about other districts, but do we pay our mentors here? 50?
we do.
Yeah, we do. It's,
There is a
yeah,
little stipend for that.
yeah. But it's not, we don't do anything as intense as what I had that first year, which was extremely valuable.
And it drives me crazy when the legislature says we want to incentivize things. Like, I don't know if you had heard, as part of this summer program and for Read to Achieve camps, they want to pay $1,200 signing bonuses for national board teachers and EVOS bonus teachers and that kind of stuff. But yet we don't want to put in there somewhere $100 a month or $200 a month for mentor pay what better way to increase effectiveness? and what Megan was just saying. I mean, that's
Well,
where that stuff used to live.
yeah. Well,
I'm going to stop us here because we're at the end of our time. I'm
yeah.
sure you're happy to stay, and you guys are happy to stay. Our APs have been out of the building a lot
Yeah.
because of our summer school planning and that kind of stuff. So I want to encourage those who want to stay, to stay. And Dale and I can sit here and swap stories, I'm sure. War stories about that. But again, Dale, we want to thank you, and I can tell you, just sitting in the room with these guys, I know it's hard to tell through the webcam, but there's been a lot of aha moments and things from these folks sitting around the table here. So again, Aaron, you can do what you need to do, and I just want to say, if you need to go, feel free to go. If you want to stay and engage Dale until he's got to go. Dale, are you at the beach or are you in the mountains?
No, I'm in the mountains.
Okay, because the sign behind your head says.
Yeah, my wife brought this from the last condo here. I don't know why she wants this one, but she brought it here. No, I'm in Lake Lure today. I had so many Zooms. I was on campus Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And so I'm Zooming several meetings today. And so I stayed in today, and I'll be back on campus tomorrow. But I'm here.
So let me give you the official thank you. What a great partnership. I want to thank Dr. Brown again for recommending us to get together, because we have, and I want to, in front of you, praise our group of APs, because I have enjoyed taking this journey with them. And just like when I was a principal, I always said that everything I learned as a principal, if I ever went back in the classroom, would make me such a better teacher.
Absolutely.
And the things, the journey that I have taken with them this year, I have picked up so many things that if I went back as a building level principal, I know that I would be better for the journey. So let me give you your official thank you. And then again, stay as long as anybody wants. But, like I said, I know some of you might have to get rolling. And do
Thank
some
you.
things.
Yeah, thank you. This is truly
Until the
invaluable.
presentation.
I appreciate all of y'all. I'll put in a plug right quick before y'all all go. And not for Gardner Webb, but I would encourage all of you, as you move into the role of principalship, I would encourage all of you to seek a doctoral program, because you have a lot of these collaborative moments in your doctoral programs that I believe that shape you as principals. So if you're interested in ours, that's fine. But if not, I would encourage you to be a lifelong learner, to keep going in this process. I think no, it doesn't matter what age you are. I can't tell some of you, it doesn't matter. But continue your learning, because kids deserve it. Thank you, and thank you for the kind words. I've enjoyed this. I could, as y'all can tell, I could do this all the time. I kind of do this all the time.
Well, Dr. Lamb, I am actually, Dr. Kennedy and Dr. Kennedy has been my mentor. I am on that course, and earned the EDS as of December.
Well,
And
congratulations.
now, thank you. Just pressing my way. And ironically, tentatively, I have a title for my proposal.
Yay, go girl.
And it is looking at the memoirs of seasoned AP's journey to the principalship. And that is really coming from a place of, I am in my 7th year and thinking about, opportunities of growth for myself. Definitely wanting to grow as an instructional leader. And then just also recognizing that as we do have opportunities like this, and we learn more about ourselves and our leadership styles, that sometimes, as an AP and principal, there are things we all would say we learn of what to do and what not to do. One thing that we all also know is at the end of the day, our principal has the final say. So as we just continue to grow and, some of these ideas and things, there are definitely things that we have started doing But the idea of being consistent and doing them is what is most important.
Mhm.
Yeah, and being fearless.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And so this proposal is this for a capstone or a dissertation?
For a dissertation, very, very, very early in the process.
Mhm.
Just
Where are you doing this degree?
UNCG.
Oh, great place. Great place. And so are you going to stick with just qualitative only?
We're going to say yes.
Yeah, you're just basically you're doing a phenomenology then. Or are you well, of course you could be doing,
Go ahead.
I guess it could be grounded theory, but you're basically you're doing a narratology of their experiences. That's what you're going to do?
The lived experiences of is it?
Okay, lived experience, that's phenomenology. Yeah, okay.
Two words, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
well,
gotta go.
yeah. It's for my epistemology. Yeah, like
Phenomenology,
it has been it has definitely
Yeah,
been
I guess
a journey. Just understanding the differences in the conceptual frameworks and theoretical frameworks and working through right now the methodology and truly understanding the difference in my data collection piece.
Yes.
What the methodology is, and I'm doing a case study. Like it has been intense, and has been cathartic in some ways. And understanding that this work is one where, because of how long I'm going to need to go, I need to really be invested.
Yeah.
It has been hard to really decide whether or not I wanted to be more practitioner inquiry versus the case study. And a lot of it again goes back to my experiences, but that's why I don't need to be practitioner inquiry.
Right. I would, and again, I'm worth what you pay me. I would discourage you from doing case study.
Okay.
Case study is something like people like me do. I'm in the 5th year of one right now, and it's just getting started. Case studies are long-term, and they're more for people who are at the higher ed level. For a practitioner like you, you'd be a whole lot better to do a phenomenology. You can get through before you're as old as I am that way. I mean, we're talking about practical kind of things, starting with the end in mind. You got in to get out.
Right.
At 2 o'clock today, I'm meeting with one of my doctorals via Zoom today. She's doing mixed methodology. She's doing the same thing you're doing, except with school counselors. Their lived experience, and we're doing a mixed methodology. The first half of hers is phenomenology. She wanted to do a case study too, but she's doing a phenomenology on the first half on her qualitative, and on her quantitative on the back side, we're doing a survey from the Counselors Association on the back side, and then we're doing mixed methodology, convergent design. So she's doing phenomenology, and then she's doing survey for her quantitative, and she'll be able to do this, but you still got to do those interviews. See, that's the trick. It takes forever to do those interviews.
Lord. Yeah, doing the interviews, transcribing the interviews, I've learned a lot, even when it comes to observations, really having to describe what I believe is happening. This is an interesting experience.
Yeah, you might want to look into. I don't know what UNCG uses. You might want to look into a software product like Qualtrics. Qualtrics, Qualtrics. Qualtrics. You can do surveys in it. You can do open-ended. You can dump data in it from interviews, and it will help you with your analysis. But you should ask your folks at UNCG which products they use that help with qualitative analysis of interviews. Generally what you're able to do is translate those things into text and enter them in, and it'll help you identify your themes.
Those themes, that's exactly what I was gonna say. Okay.
It'll help you do that. We use Qualtrics. I use it extensively. I have all of my doctorals use it for their surveys as well, because it's we can do analysis. We can run chi-square out of Qualtrics, which obviously
See, and now you're speaking a lot more mixed, that quantitative piece, that aspect there that I'm not as familiar with.
Interested in.
In fact, I was discouraged in part because
Appalachian State.
I was told through my literature review, based on what I'm trying to do, that could be the way if I wanted to bring more of the statistical pieces in.
Well, your methodology, your literature review is around what you want to know. And your methodology is about looking at your research questions and how best can I answer these questions? What data do I need to collect? What format? How do I collect this data? And then how and what data you collect determines what analytics you can use. Now, if you're doing survey data that's categorical, then you can't use analysis of variance. You have to use chi-square. And so most of my doctorals, when we collect data using survey, we're going to use chi-square anyway, and we can run that out of Qualtrics and do a quick and dirty. And all we're doing, and there's three different types of chi-square. We just generally do goodness of fit to make sure that it's not outlier data. It's really simple stuff. It's not higher level. Don't get me started. I teach statistics on the doctoral side, and so. But we try to make it as simple as possible. You know, we don't do higher level stuff just for the point of doing higher level stuff. Remember, you're a practitioner. What you're interested in is having your questions answered. What do you want to know? What's your burning desire to do this? You're not trying to write for some peer-reviewed journal to impress somebody with your knowledge of how you can do parametric statistics. Non-parametric, you know, for your inferential is fine using chi-square and frequency distributions. I mean, you know, and reporting, you know, your descriptive statistics, you know, your measures of central tendency, just reporting, you know, mean, median, and mode, your measures of variance, standard deviation, variance, and range. I mean, just reporting the simple stuff. You're not trying to impress anybody. You're just trying to answer a question or you know, 2 or 3 questions of your research question. This is what I want to know. This is what I'm interested in. And your literature review and your conceptual, that's where your conceptual framework comes from. Is your literature review. I mean, what your conceptual framework basically says, what do I think I'm going to find? This is what, you know, if we're working with Hertzberg in motivation, you know, this is what Hertzberg says we're going to find. What did I actually find? You link, you know, chapter 1, your conceptual framework, into chapter 2, back to chapter 5, and your findings. This is what my conceptual framework said I was going to find, and this is what I found. And we do the statistics that we have to do based on the analysis that we need. We don't just design things to say, I want to do a linear regression. Nobody in their right mind as a practitioner says, I want to do a linear regression. Now, at higher ed, when we're doing things, sometimes we might want to do something like that, but I don't think that that's even smart at our level. That you take it where you go where your data and your questions take you. And you know, if I had any advice for doctoral students, just like I'm working with Genevieve here in about 10 minutes, if I had any advice for doctoral students, it's be true to yourself and what you want to know. Let that take you where you go, not your methodology. Don't be afraid to go anywhere. Well, I don't want to do that because I'd have to be able to do this. No, go where what you want to know takes you. If you want to know what the lived experience of those APs is, and it's a qualitative only study, that's fine. You don't have to have a quantitative piece. If all you're interested in is a phenomenology of their lived experience as APs, that's good enough. That's enough.
And if that's what moves you, because that's where I started with my dissertation, and one of the best pieces of advice that I got was, as you start this process, when you find what moves you, take every opportunity you have to start bringing things back to that central theme, because when you go to write that dissertation, so, you know, I did a research for Intro to Methods course. I'm just making stuff up, but I did research for an Intro to Methods course. Well, I'm building my literature base.
Yeah.
Then when I went back to write the dissertation,
Okay.
I'm going to tell you, the very first paper I ever wrote in my intro to my doctoral program, the seed for my dissertation was planted in that paper. And in the literature that I reviewed for that first 10-pager that I wrote became my bouncing baby dissertation 5 years later. And the other thing is, kind of to Dale's point, is just go where it takes you. And if it takes you to a different direction, what a great thing to put in the dissertation. Because
Right.
my own dissertation, based on my own experiences, and my dissertation was on perceptions of dropout risk factors and prevention methods between middle and high school teachers. And after 16 years as a high school teacher and 5 years as a high school AP, and then I was just beginning, I was an alternative school principal, I thought, well, look, high school teachers live and breathe dropouts. That's all we push, dropouts, 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 dropouts. But in my study group, what I found was that the middle school teachers actually were just as knowledgeable of the risk factors and probably more likely to utilize the prevention methods, because high school teachers tended to think by the time we get them, their course is already set.
Yeah.
And so what a great thing that was for me to work through based on the literature and then based on what I found and what it turned out to be in practice. And then the recommendations, and I mean, it was just, it really, once I got over that hump of actually collecting the data, it really was downhill from there. I mean, because the world opened up and I went, oh, wait a minute, this is not what I expected. So let me tie this back together. And I bet from the time I finished my data collection, I had that thing finished in about 90 days because it just started, it all went from there. So, but everything that you've done to this point, when you're building that literature base for the literature review, and that's some of the best advice I ever got. The other best advice I ever got, Dr. Lamb, was what makes a great dissertation?
The one that's finished? Oh.
4 signatures.
4 signatures. That is exactly right. You got in it again. Remember, you got in to get out. You don't want to be as old as me. You want to find out what you want to know. One of the first phrases that I teach mine and I preach is don't go down rabbit holes. That one of the first phrases you need to learn to tell people on your committee is that's really would be an interesting thing to know, and that would be something that the next person should pick up in their study.
Okay, yeah. I have already been advised.
Don't let somebody else. Don't go down the rabbit holes. Know exactly where you do what.
Well, everybody on your committee already has their doctorate.
Yeah.
Lord. That is true.
I had a fantastic local advisor, my choice for the committee, who had been college faculty and that kind of stuff. And he said, look, let me tell you, this is who you want to be your chair. These are some of the things you want to do. I mean, he got there, and then our school gave us a research consultant. And that man and I locked horns like nobody's business. But let me tell you, then when I got to my defense, he wasn't there. And I thought, this man has put me through hell for the last 18 months. Where is he? And the administrative assistant for School of Ed said, no, he said you were good. He said he had worn you out. He said everything in your dissertation is good. He doesn't even need to be here. You're that good.
Yeah.
And I thought, so see, all that work on the front end made the defense easy peasy lemon squeezy. But so I mean, there's part of that struggle that works on the front end, because I've heard of people that get to the defense when they've not had that struggle on the front end, and then they get ripped apart. I got ripped apart behind the scenes so that the defense was.
who I know will give it to me straight.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Be a part, because that's what I
That's the
suppose,
thing.
period, so.
Well, Dale, I think we're going, we have taken enough of your time, but thank you so much.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
Yep, and, please, so let's,
I'll be in touch.
you know, next year as we start, I'm gonna get some feedback from them at our final meeting next month about topics and things that we've gone for. And again, you know, what we're trying to do is align to executive development, to the standards for them to grow in the standards. And I do mean it. This group, they are smart, they are inquisitive. And one of the things, and I'll say this in front of Posley, because I know what her goals are. One of the things that frustrates me about being a small district is we don't have opportunities for
The
these.
lack of opportunities.
And I think every one of them, well, in fact, Sylvie has been a principal. I think every one of them can be a fantastic principal. I wish we had 5 schools for them to go to develop our own talent pipeline, because we've got good principals sitting in seats now.
Right.
You know, part of what we're doing is we're like Gardner-Webb athletics. You get a good coach in there and then they're gonna go someplace else. We develop them, they're gonna grow someplace else.
That's exactly what, you know, that's what I told him about Trey, the football coach. You know, one way or the other, you know, 2 years is all you're going to have him. Oh, what do you mean? Well, he's so underpaid. Either you'll fire him or he'll go somewhere else. One or the other.
But anyway, thanks, Dale. And like I said, we may be reaching back out to you, do some things.
Please do. And if I can plug you in with people better than me, so don't hesitate, and it won't hurt my feelings.
Will
But
do.
please be in touch.
I've told her again, but please tell Sydney again. You know, Sydney and I were college classmates. That's how we got hooked up. We've known each other since we were 17, 18 years old, freshman in Carolina. So,
Thank you again.
bye, Posey. Take care.
See you later. Oh.
Well, I'll certainly tell her. I will do that.
Yeah, please do. But thanks a lot.
All right.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.